Well, hello. It's been a while, friends. Welcome to the More Than Graphic podcast. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Cicely.
And man, I cannot begin to describe to everyone right now like how excited we are. One, about this particular topic, but two, we just have a lot of life going on, like in our lives, period. Like things that are happening in and around us that just feel good. It's a good transition. Things are going well. And I just want to really encourage anyone who's in that season of transition, wherever you are in that process, know that you're not alone. This is what this podcast is aimed to deliver, is that virtual safe space for you to feel encouraged, supported, and a little empowerment, if you will. Get behind your damn self a little bit and definitely enjoy the fruits of your labor wherever that might be in the season that you're in. So, this podcast is dedicated to women in tech and women in creative spaces. So, this is really important for me to, and Cicely as well, to kind of encourage women who are interested in tech or excited about tech, or have maybe had long, fruitful, um, I don't know, career. I don't want to say careers. So I want to say a season. Seasons is kind of more comfy for me, to me. But I definitely want to like encourage you wherever you are. You are loved. You are seen. You are heard. So that's really kind of where we're coming from today. But today's topic is really me like stepping out of the way and really letting other people kind of take over this conversation as we talk about disparities, specifically in medicine, as we talk about this really hot button topic, right, Cicely? Like this is really something you are very passionate about, I know.
Absolutely. And I think, especially as a woman in the medical field and as a Black woman in the medical field, and especially in women's health, like that's my jam. That's what I love the most. That it's so important to recognize those disparities, but recognizing it isn't enough. We have to figure out solutions because it's actual problems. It's affecting people's lives. Literally, people are dying. People are, and even when they're not dying, they're still suffering like what they call morbidities as well. So we've got to find a way to make sure that we recognize and address and really take on the disparities in healthcare head on, because it affects us all. If you are a person of color, it is, will, has, and is going to continue to affect you if you don't do something about it. So feel very strongly about it.
Yes, absolutely. We're gonna light this torch a little bit more. We've got some really quick stats to share. According to the CDC, obviously data shows that racial and ethnic minority groups throughout the United States, excuse me, we'll edit that out. Data shows that racial and ethnic minority groups throughout the United States experience higher rates of illness and death across a wide range of health conditions, including diabetes, hypertension, obesity, asthma, and heart disease, even compared to their white counterparts. And then, based on a Harvard study, they even put some numbers behind it and said that Black people have higher rates of diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease than other groups. And Black children have a 500,000% higher death rate. 500, excuse me, let me rephrase. 500% higher death rate from asthma compared to other children, specifically white children. That's insane. Like, there's so many, and let's not even talk about going into the reproductive process, right? There's a whole nother line of triggering and unfortunately traumatic information that kind of echoes throughout that. I just think it's so important that while we talk about this space, that we also find ways that we can navigate getting it out, getting the information present, putting it in people's faces so that they can determine what steps are best in accordance to them. So I'm really glad that we actually have a doctor in the house today, and I'm really excited for Cicely to introduce her.
Yes, ma'am. First, I'm going to ask you, how do I correctly pronounce your first name so that I make sure I get it right?
Fenwa.
Fenwa. Okay, just like it looks. Okay, so wonderful. Now I can proceed with a little bit more confidence. All right. Dr. Fenwa Milhouse, is a fellowship trained board certified urologist. Originally born in Nigeria, her family immigrated to the US when she was a young child. She grew up in Texas and ended up at the University of Texas at Houston for medical school. After hearing a lecture about urology given by an African American woman urologist, she found her calling. She trained at the University of Chicago for urology residency. Thereafter, she completed her fellowship in female pelvic medicine and reconstructive surgery. She is a wife and mother of three. She is passionate about introducing the public to the world of urology, mentoring underrepresented minorities, and diversity and inclusivity in the workplace. Welcome to Dr. Fenwa Milhouse.
Thank you for
Welcome.
having me, ladies. I'm excited to get into this.
Ooh, yes. I mean, there's so many different ways that we could kind of dive into this, but I really wanted to kind of get into this space of maybe your personal journey in some of this. And I know you two could probably share plenty of other stories and things along those lines, but really kind of what fuels you in the realm of urology, right? Like I see your Instagram and it's just like loaded with all these amazing hot topics, and I'm like, wow, like it really is amazing and very impressive. So if you're not following her, please go out there and do it. We'll give you all the links in the show notes. But yes, I would love to hear more about your day to day aspects in being who you are.
Yeah, so I am a urologist, which I will say I don't assume the average person knows what that means. I didn't even know what a urologist was until medical school. So urologist is a surgical specialist. We are surgeons. We specialize in a specific area of the body, and that is the urinary tract. So all the parts of the body that are involved in making urine. And we also specialize in the male reproductive system. So the important parts that allow a man to reproduce, make testosterone, have sex, those things. That's fundamentally what we are. Now, there are different within urology, there are like different subspecialties of urology. So different branches that you can get further subspecialized in. And one of those, we have many of those, but one of those branches is female pelvic medicine and reconstructive surgery. And that is the subspecialty that I have. And um, I tell people this all the time. Urology is for everyone. It's not for men by men. If you make urine, you could use a urologist. Okay. And urologists do deal with diseases and issues that affect the female genitalia. And so I get to treat all humans. And I really, truly love what I do because I get to talk about the stuff that no one ever wants to talk about, that's kind of taboo or you've been hiding from everybody, and it's almost like I get in on, a secret, or I get this privilege. And I love talking to people, as you will find out. I love talking and I love getting them to open up and to destigmatize these things that a lot of us deal with. As far as why the heck did I choose urology? That's oftentimes the next question, like, well, what made you do that? And like I said, I didn't know what a urologist was until I got to medical school. And I found out, promptly checked that off the list of things I wanted to be when I grow up. I said, well, that doesn't sound like anything a woman, talk less a black woman, black girl, uh, has any business doing. I mean, part of it was kind of, I didn't think I was good enough for something like that. I mean, as a surgeon, as a surgery subspecialty, I don't have what it takes. And I didn't see anything remotely depicting, who I am in this field. That all changed when I met a black woman urologist who gave us a lecture. That day changed everything for me. I saw myself and I thought, hella dope. I want to be a badass like her. I want to, learn from her, see why she chose this. And the rest is history. So that has been one of the primary motivations of being visible on social media, is because I understand how important representation is for our young brothers and sisters.
I love that. And I love the fact too that you saw yourself in another person who looked like you. That's so important for us. People don't understand sometimes the level of representation and how we can see ourselves through the eyes of another person of color. Representation matters. We say it over and over again, but we really do mean it. Like it exists. It's very powerful to see a level of a person of color really kind of be forward in that way, to be an inspiration for yourself. So yeah, girl, I am all about that. I think that is super cool. And I love the fact too that again, all the topics that you talk about are really on this taboo level. Like it's kind of like, are we supposed to talk about that? Like, is that normal? Like all those type of things. Like, girl, you nail it.
Thank you. I love talking about it. I love talking about the pee and all these bodily functions and the private parts, I love it. So
Sorry, me always trying to get off of mute. I can never find it quick enough. But I love the fact that you saw the representation that gave you the idea to be like, you know what, this is who I can be as well. If this could be my life, I could be up here giving lectures and teaching the masses about private parts and the urinary tract function. And what's really crazy too is you're literally you're the second Black female urologist that I've ever seen or heard of. So it's kind of crazy. My husband had to have a urological surgery, very rare urological surgery, male surgery. but, and we had to find a specialist for the surgery and didn't find a Black woman except the one, and I found her on Instagram of all places. And I was like, well, girl, if you were closer, we could have gone to you. Because that was the one thing I saw her credentials and I just heard her speak and talk about, how she treats her patients. And I was already I don't know anything about you. And I'll come to you. I cannot remember her name. It's terrible. I know she's in Texas though. So I know she is another Black urologist in Texas.
Yeah.
And she specializes in, it's male reproductive, vasectomy reversals and things like that. So when I saw her, I was like, we need to move to Texas, clearly. this is it. But even through the screen, I was like, you know what? I would feel comfortable having someone that I know go to her office, referring, people that I love and know to her office. And that's kind of a question I had for you, because I know that anyone who's Black and in medicine, or I would say Black in a space that is not very Black, has had these experiences where you've had patients who maybe didn't know what you look like. Before the age of the internet, I think this was a lot more common. Now we can Google people, we can see who you are, what you look like, where you're from. But I know I've experienced a similar thing, but I've had patients who they'd see me and you could almost visibly see their body language change, get more relaxed, a sigh of relief. So can you tell us kind of one of the first times you had that happen with a patient and just kind of how it made you feel and how you navigated through those feelings?
Yeah. So one encounter that I'll never forget was when I was a resident. I was early in my urology residency and I walk in and it's just me. I'm not with my attending and it's a young Black male and I don't remember what we were seeing him for, but I walk in and his eyes, he didn't even hold back. And his body language was loud and he was loud. His eyes got big and his mouth, and he was like, you're a doctor. You're the doctor. Oh my God, you're the urologist. And he said, I thought that was only on TV. And it was so heartwarming. And I said, no, they let a few of us trickle on through, we exist a little bit. We try to do more, trying to get more of us. And it was just, you talk about this body language, but you definitely can, you can sense it. You walk in the room and somebody suddenly feels like, I feel safe. Another patient told me, she's like, I just want to let you know, thank you for doing what you do. I feel seen for the first time in.
Did we lose you? She froze. Oh no.
That for somebody. I just love us so much. Now it's even, I feel like I get that a lot more actually. And from young and old, I've had older patients and they're like, I had an old lady who said, they told us we wouldn't be in the White House. And look at that. And look at you. They probably told you couldn't be up in here and look at you. And she was 80 something. So she's seeing, she's been through some things. And so it's a special privilege to take care of Black patients, particularly because we are at such a disparity in so many facets of our health. It's a privilege that we, I think we Black doctors don't take lightly in a calling. Black healthcare professionals, I should say.
Right. And thank you so much for sharing that. And that's exactly what I mean. And I think a lot of times, our white colleagues just kind of don't understand. They'll be like, that person, they were like so nice to you. Like, did you know them from somewhere? It's like, we don't know them, but we know them.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a, it's a different kind of, it's an ancestral knowing. Like, it's
Yes.
a different thing. So thank
Yes.
you for sharing how important that is. Like, I think it's one of those things you can kind of explain to people, but it's more of a feeling. It's something that you feel. So I 100% love that you put it that way. And you're like, I could see, you could feel the energy. It's something that you feel. You can't really explain what it's like until you've experienced it.
And one thing to just add is that what that creates oftentimes is a place where the patient feels they feel safer, more vulnerable to share all the details that they need to share so you can help them. And they're probably more compliant and going along with the plan and can understand the plan. And that translates into actual outcome. Actually, outcomes are better for patients, for Black patients who see Black doctors. And that's not just Black patients. That actually is reproducible in other ethnic minorities, that when they're matched with their uh, um, similar ethnic physician, their outcomes tend to be better.
Yeah, we see that. We see that often in other places. Definitely, when I work with Black businesses on branding or anything along those lines, that it's almost like a little bit of a sigh of relief. Like, oh, okay, I can, yeah, girl, kind of feel. And I get
Mhm.
that. But the other part of that too is that acceptance part, as you mentioned before. It's that replication of safe spaces.
Mhm.
It's letting them know that we're actually being seen, we're actually being heard. It's not just roll off the tongue sort of feel. It's not a systematic checkbox of I saw you today. It's
Mhm.
more so of a celebration sometimes, even of we get to see each other and I get to be seen and you get to hear me and I get to hear you. So again, kind of that ancestral knowing, hashtag ancestral knowing right now, because I love that. That was such a good communing word for all of us who are looking to see representation of ourselves in other spaces.
Yes.
Um, I absolutely love where this conversation is going because this is kind of what I really kind of want to know more of, kind of that behind the scenes feel. So, is there a personal goal for you that you have for yourself, being in this particular profession as a Black woman?
Oh, wow. So my goal is to take care of patients and particularly to be a force of moving the disparities to closing this gap. Okay. And there's different ways to do that through research, through advocacy. Um, and so I'm not heavy on the research, but through advocacy and teaching, and not, I mean, we're talking to the choir here a little bit, but really we need to make that statistic that I just said about Black patients do have better outcomes with Black doctors. Well, I mean, pat on the back to me, but why is that? That shouldn't be the case. It really shouldn't. And we should see that as a problem, that is the case. And I tell my non-Black colleagues, like, okay, there's, this is what you need to be aware. We all need to be aware of, but, particularly. And so that's, you know, a, a major goal when I'm done with my career and, all the accolades and whatnot. Yeah, the Instagram fame is cool and whatever, but did I help to somehow move this needle even a little bit, to close this gap and to inspire more Black urologists?
Yes, I'm so about this path. Pass the
Yeah,
baton. Pass
yeah,
the baton, Dr. Milhouse. I love it because
yeah.
I love that the forefront of our minds say yes, we get the accolades, we get the awards, we get the notifications, we get a little bit of the fame, but then what did we leave behind? Like you said, moving that needle. What have we done to really move the needle forward or backward? But move it in a way that is for us, right?
Mhm.
So I really am very, very attracted to that type of language and forward thinking because that is what is technically going to get women in tech ahead and women creatives ahead. Is how can we think about moving the needle forward? How can we progress as a platform, as a group of women, but also as women of color? How can we progress forward? So that's a constant question, that we always kind of interject into these episodes, because that's our goal. Our goal is to not just sit here and talk amongst our testimonials and our life bearings and our hurdles and our trials, is to actually learn from one another, to learn through our trials, to understand, to overcome some of the disparities that we feel have also been put on us, but also overcome those mental blocks that we feel like we've put personally on ourselves. So I really love this conversation. This is so golden. I hope everyone is like seriously taking notes. We are taking notes. If you don't already know, if you don't already follow us, myself, Cicely will take turns as we're going back and forth in the conversation. We write down some really serious thoughts that really trigger a deeper conversation. And we actually break that down on a weekly basis on our Clubhouse room, where we kind of break down each of these moments, so that more people can better understand and relate to the platform and to this specific topic, which is such, again, a huge hot button issue, especially over the past 5 to 6 years. I want to say this decade has been on fire, specifically in the disparities of medicine for people of color at all. So I really hope that when people are listening to these episodes, they're not only nodding their heads and encouraging and liking, but they're also sharing it to another person who really needs to hear these words. So, yeah, that's kind of like my little push there, interjecting a little bit. But I have one more question that I really want to ask. And then Cicely, I'm gonna let you take turns. I know this was not supposed to be my direction. This is supposed to be Cicely's. I'm curious, as we talk about disparities, how do you deal with levels of racism throughout your work, maybe in your, I don't want to say workplace, but in your realm? How do you deal with levels of racism?
So yeah, I mean, I kind of put all of this under med racism. There's the patient facing disparities, and systemic racism that they receive through healthcare. And then there is the like internal discrimination. Racism is one of the isms. There's sexism in medicine. There's, transphobia, homophobia. There's religious phobia. So there's all of these isms. And, for a large part of like the journey to become a doctor is just so, it takes so much of you mentally that you don't have a lot of time to like process the racisms and the sexisms or whatever in the moment, particularly when you're low on the totem pole, like, medical student, even early days of as a resident, interested student. You're just so low on the totem pole. You're like, I just need to get through this. And then you go back and you look and you're like, man, that was really effed up, and it comes from all directions. It comes from patients. So patients you see will undoubtedly say some off, and I've heard like some of the craziest, most offensive things, down to the N word. So there's the patients. Then there's unfortunately like other healthcare professionals, okay, whether that is nurses or physician assistants or the medical assistants or whatnot. A lot of that, we could go into a whole realm about sexism within medicine as it relates to that. And then there's unfortunately the physicians who are supposed to be somehow above all of this, but no, they're invaluable humans, and it could be coming from, particularly harmful is when it comes from those that are above you, that are your teachers or your educators or attendings or your supervisors or your whatnot. There is a hierarchy that still exists within doctoring in medicine. So you're navigating that hierarchy already. And then now you have to deal with the burden of racism and sexism and whatever on top of that, is too much, I don't think I answered your question, but how did I deal with it? In the moment, I just ignored most of the time. Most of the time what we deal with it? We're like trying to figure out, is it worth it? A lot of it is like, am I interpreting this correctly, that's what microaggressions do. They make you second guess your own thoughts and your own understanding. Like, wait, but maybe I'm tripping. No, you know what I'm saying? And then you're in the moment. And so a lot of the times I just kind of just, got through the day. I never cried at the hospital. Like I had rule number one, like don't let them see you sweat. So if I cried in a bathroom or when I got to my car or something like that. Now I'm a big girl and I'm a bit of a boss. And now, no. I'm a pull you to the side. I'm a stop you. I'm a correct you. I'm a check you. I'm a, do what I need to do. I'm going to speak up for somebody. If it's not towards me, for somebody else, I'm going to speak up for them. I'm going to, and it doesn't always need to be a big, like, no, you're, a big to do, but it needs to be something. Again, a pull to the side, I've done plenty of, because a lot of these things are unintentional, but still harmful. Okay. Just because they're not intentional doesn't mean they're harmful nonetheless. So now I, catch on to these and speak up in the moment when I see them, if I hear about them, and try to use it as a point to educate those that need education.
Yeah, Cicely, definitely jump on in here because I feel like the education part is the
Including the
component that
patients.
everybody.
Including the patients. Now, customer isn't always right.
Come on. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Always joke. That's why you're at the doctor, because you're here to get help. So stop. Stop that mess right now.
Oh,
And not in a bad way. Like, I don't mean like I'm clearly not chastising someone for having to come to the doctor, but you came here for a reason. You need to clearly judge.
Yes.
One of the biggest things, like I talked about this. So I have, I'm a contractor at an online job as well. So we work with like health and family. So we work with from the preconception stage to people with kids. So one of the big things that we talked about during Black Maternal Health Week this year was how a lot of the times, unfortunately, the burden of educating people falls to people of color. And we already have the burden of experiencing these things. We already have the burden of, carrying these things. We have the burden of having the trauma from when we have to relive, seeing whatever videos people post about police brutality, about, just situations that happen. So we relive all these things constantly. So we're constantly barraged with it. Then we have microaggressions that we go through every day, maybe more so if you're in a male dominated field, maybe more so if you're in a field with not a lot of Black people. So one of the things I always ask too is like, we have to put some of that responsibility back on the people. And I know you said like, a lot of times I really feel it is unintentional, because clearly like we work side by side with these people. Some of them we consider friends, and just like, you'll hear someone say things, you'll be like, you know what, that's not really who that person is. Like, I know their character well enough, or I know them well enough to know that, you know what, maybe like just they had a moment of ignorance, right? Like that was just not like, maybe they didn't realize that they were saying. So like you said, like, let me give you a little pull aside. So what kind of advice would you give to people who are not of color, so our non-colored friends? What advice would you give to people to really kind of curb, or to really, I guess, check themselves? Like, what advice would you give to anyone who's taking care of patients who may not look like them, or anyone who's in an area that may have to do, and I guess, personal services? Because, at the grocery store, that's broader, right? But like when you have to do something as intimate as taking care of patients, as, talking about their private parts, talking about their family lives, their reproductive history, their ailments, their diseases, their medication, that's very personal stuff. And you don't just want to share that with anybody. So when you're, I guess, in the moment, if you've had to educate someone, or how would you tell your peers, like other doctors, other PAs, nurse practitioners, whoever, how would you tell them to be vigilant, I guess, about how they speak and interact with people of color?
First of all, they have to know that it matters. If you don't think it matters, whatever, then they have to know that it matters. Your interaction will translate into actual outcomes. And if you care about your outcomes, you want to change what you do. You have to accept, we all need to fundamentally accept that we are biased individuals. All of us. We go in with bias because of the world that we are shaped around. Okay. I have bias. You have bias. White people have bias. Non-white people have bias. We all have it. And so a lot of people don't want to admit that they have bias because they're fearful of being seen as racist or bad or evil or whatever. I don't know. It makes you human, and you become a better human when you recognize your bias. And you recognize your bias and do something about it. You know better, you do better. Okay. So I took an implicit bias test, and I'm actually biased in favor of white women over black women. How about them apples? Okay. I share this. I like sharing that with all like my non-black colleagues, because I think what it does is it allows them to realize that, oh, okay, she's not embarrassed sharing this. I'm not. I'm human. Okay. I'm shaped by the same anti-blackness that you get. We internalize the same anti-blackness. Okay. So I'm human, and it allows them to then explore their own biases and start to check them. I think when you start to see how your biases play into the words that you say and what you do, then you start to understand, like, oh God, how terrible that sounds. And part of that also is knowing that you might slip up or whatever, and not being defensive. Believe your minority colleagues or patients or whatever when they say, hey, you offended me. If you offended them, you offended them. It's not your intention. It is your impact, period, point blank. No need to talk about intentions. No need to defend yourself with intentions. Oh my goodness, I was wrong. End of story. Let me do better. And speak up, for God's sakes. Gosh darn, say something. Okay. When you see something, it's not directed towards you, but say something. When I've had multiple moments where there's been something said in the room or whatever that was offensive, and the whole room was quiet. And it hurts more. The quiet people, the quietness, that hurts more than the offender. It does. I had a surgeon as a medical student visiting at a different school than I go to. That's a common thing that we do. You spend a month there or something. And he, in the middle of this big OR with probably about 10 people in this OR, okay, 10, from other medical students, from residents, from fellows, from surgery staff, from other, What the heck is wrong with that godforsaken continent, Africa? When I explained to him, hey, I'm from Nigeria, that was his response. It was dead silent in that OR. Not one peep. The only peep was me trying to muster up somewhat of a response as a young, I think I was like maybe 22, 23-year-old interested medical. I didn't even get into urology yet. I was trying. You know what I'm saying? And so I remember that silence a lot more when I think about that silence. That gives me, just more PTSD than the actual words. So please, you cannot be a part of this fight if you're quiet.
Sage advice, very sage advice. And I think that sometimes it can be that simple that if you notice someone has said something, and even if you're not I don't know why it's wrong, but it just doesn't sound right. Or even as a white person or someone who's not black, if it made you feel some type of way, imagine how it made the person who was directed at feel. So I love that. Even if you are not quite at the elevated status of recognizing those biases yet, I think we all still inherently know when something's wrong or when it doesn't feel right? As little kids, we know these things. They're someone said something to them, and I didn't like how it came out, or I just didn't like they said that. Doesn't even have to be about race. You can be talking, when kids pick on other kids, and well, I don't like that they talked about Susie's braids, or that they talked about something that Johnny can't help. Again, we have these kind of things that they're innate. We know when something doesn't feel right, or when it feels wrong, or if it hurts our feelings, or if it's whoa, so be the person who speaks up. Don't be that guy or gal who doesn't say anything, because you're going to be thinking about it for the rest of your life too. I imagine the people in that OR just they went home and, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. And it was so terrible, but what did you do in the moment? And that's what really defines. That's what really makes you an ally and an advocate, is doing something when you have the opportunity. And you have to, go fight people. You don't need to go fight people, but you do need to speak up. You do need to say, or hey, I don't like how you said that. That was wrong. Or hey, that was unnecessary. even if you don't know what to say in the moment, just say something. It's better than silence. So I love that you said that.
Think about, I don't know if you guys know, but like it was at BYU, Brigham Young University, the Duke basketball player.
Oh yeah.
You know, she getting called the N-word every time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's volleyball, not basketball. Sorry, volleyball player.
Yes.
Every time she's up to the net, who are these people?
Yes.
Fans next to this heckler, this racist heckler that didn't do.
At what point do you nudge the person and be like, "What are you doing?" Like the other people in the same space that are also occupying the same level of hate. Like,
yes, it's hard to believe, but it's not. So it shouldn't be surprising because this is what happens, and this is how the isms, you know, survive. This is they survive not because of the the minority of people that are that bigoted. They survive because of the swaths of people who are
silent
and silent. So
yeah, MLK quote: "There's a time when silence is betrayal." Right.
Yes.
So that is primarily where I feel in a lot of ways where we have to take arms within ourselves because the silence is too deafening.
Yes.
And I completely agree that we have to advocate. We have to speak up. We have to start. Unfortunately, it feels like, you know, why do I have to educate? Why do I have to pull it aside? And unfortunately, the reality is it does start from a level of us. It does start from a level of intention. So that's the part that I feel I hear a lot. I hear that a lot, you know, in the same talk about disparities in medicine and racism and things along those lines is, well, you know, Black people are tired. We're tired of educating. We're tired. And we are, don't get me wrong. But that elevator won't go up if we don't keep hitting those buttons. We're not going to move if we don't keep telling people that what we need to say or what we feel or what triggers us or bothers us when we hear this type of negativity. So while it does feel tiring, we've been on that platform for a long time, so we have a lot of things that we're tired of. So we've got a lot of things that we could say that we're very, you know, weak. I don't say weak, but just tired, right? Just tired. So I really appreciate the fact that you shared those specific ways that we can, for people not of color, because I just feel like that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. We say it, but we don't necessarily say the steps how. And you know, sometimes for a lot of people of color, they need the whole manual. They don't need just the diagram. They need the diagram with the words, with the footnotes, with all the things. So textbook, right? So this is kind of the part where I feel like, you know, you've given us a little bit of that for people, which for people not of color. And we do have a good amount of listeners not of color who are listening and tapping into these resources and these thought processes and these feelings and this overcoming of trials and tribulations throughout this podcast. And I hope it is a tool. I hope you pick up the lessons. I hope you pick up the burdens and figure out how can we clean this up? How can we do our fair part to move the needle for them?
Yeah, I would say the homework for all your patients, all your listeners, you know, I'm a physician. All your listeners, I want you to take an implicit bias test. Homework, okay? Take one. Doesn't take that long. It's not hard at all. You can Google it. It's free. Take it, and you know, and you will be probably amazed and shocked at where your bias lies.
Ooh, I know two, because someone else had a conversation about this recently. I know two that are online that are for free on Google. I will link them in the show notes for this particular episode because that is the truth. You don't even realize sometimes the biases that you carry until you see it. And for a lot of people, it's such a scary look in the mirror sometimes, but I really encourage and empower you to give yourself permission to look a little deeper. So if you don't hear it from us, by all means, go do that. Simple. You would never know how well you could progress forward if you just drop some baggage, right? How easy it is to move forward when you don't have nothing else to carry. So yeah, do that. Do that. That's like a no-brainer. So I kind of had like a cool throwback question, which was, what did you want to be growing up? And do you see pieces of that in your current life now?
Oh, I've always wanted to be a doctor. It was like I was a pretty like traditional Nigerian kid, is drilled in our head, like
Mhm.
doctor, lawyer, engineer, one of those three. And, for me, my mom is a retired nurse. And so I gravitated towards that um, industry. Like I said, I like people. Some doctors don't.
Right,
I like
right.
I like people. I like to make people feel good. And yeah, I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't know at all what kind of doctor I would be. I certainly had no like thought of being a surgeon. I didn't that wasn't in my brain. Like it wasn't a thing. I don't know how to explain to people. Like it just wasn't an option. You see what I'm saying? And so until it was, again, the representation, till it became an option. And I love what I do, and I love the surgery the most. So yeah, I see that. Honestly, I feel blessed that I have achieved what I've achieved so far, and I'm still fairly young, and I'm like very optimistic for the future. And I think that I'm going to blow the vision I had of myself out the water. It's not simply, I remember when I left residency, I was like, I just want to be a good doctor. I just want to be a good doctor, like people think. And, you talked about transitions in the beginning of the show. I'm embarking on a transition. I'm leaving my traditional practice and I'm embarking on a future, change in my practice. And it's scary. It's fun. It's scary. But one thing that gives me, one of my patients, as I'm nearing towards my final day, he said, "You're a good doctor." Like just like that. He said, "I'm going to miss you. You're a good doctor." Oh, I was like, it's just simple words, nothing profound, but simple. I felt like, wow, okay. I, I, I am feel so blessed that I've been able to help people. And I could die tomorrow. Well, I don't want to die tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? But I could die tomorrow pretty fulfilled. So
Oh, what is the Nigerian saying? Having two heads. Like what? I can't remember what that phrase is, but it's like old.
what? I don't know this one.
It's like, do you have to, like, when you're being bit, I guess, super smart or being extremely intellectual? It's like, what, do you have two heads? Like, what is that?
Yes, yes, yes. And I don't.
I love that though. I love that expression and that
Yeah.
fire and that energy. This platform and the platform for women need it, right? Women, Black women, specifically in the medical field, we need that energy. So I love the fact that you have been able to come on board here, share a little bit of your story and how you are propelling this conversation forward about the disparities in both in the medical field, but also in the areas of just being a Black woman, a professional Black woman in the realm of medical fields. So thank you for your time and your expertise. Is there a way that people can follow you? I mean, I'm going to share all the links anyway, but let us know how we can support you.
Awesome. So go to my website, www.yourfavoriteurologist.com. I mean, if there's nothing else you remember, it's Your Favorite Urologist, because that's who I am. I am your favorite urologist. If you search the hashtag Your Favorite Urologist in Instagram, you'll find me, Dr. Milhouse. If you search Your Favorite Urologist on YouTube, you'll find me, my YouTube channel. Subscribe. I give urology nuggets on every week, hump day. We talk about all the stuff that you are afraid to ask out loud, but you're thinking in your head. We talk about, and new stuff that you didn't know existed. But yeah, those are the top places. And then my fun side, like my silly, like really comedic, if you want to know like what's life like as a physician or even just being me, it's on TikTok. That's like my little creative outlet type thing. And that's Your Favorite Urologist too.
It's so funny, y'all. TikTok.
Yeah.
I don't follow her yet. I'm going to follow her by the end of this conversation. But it is. I have gone ahead. I have visited. It is downright hilarious. Please please go follow her on whatever social medium you can get on. Do it, because the wealth, the knowledge, the intellect, the charisma, the creativity that she goes through is for real. It's legit. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very nice of you.
It's legit. I love it. So I wanted to kind of move on now, I guess, to our flash questionnaire that we ask all of our guests at the end of all of their interviews. We literally just ask you a quick question. You tell us the first thing that comes into your mind, and there's no pass or fail. It's just do.
Okay. A little nervous, but I'm ready.
Okay. I would say I love the branding, your favorite urologist. Like, who's going to forget that? It's the same across all platforms. So I'm looking up on TikTok. I'm excited. So I love that. Like I said, don't be scared. They're very low key questions, nothing crazy, but just whatever the first thing is that pops into your mind. So the first one, something new you've learned in the past year. So a life lesson, hobby, or a fun fact.
I've learned, this is a boring answer, but taxes. I've learned like how complex taxes are, and trying to do that. I've never done taxes myself, and now I'm thinking about it by myself and these transitions and this and that. It's a very boring answer, but that's the first thing that came to mind. And the more I learn, the more I don't know. So yes.
CPA, the subject is boring. The answer is not boring because it's very complex. You're right. It's very, that's why nobody wants to learn about it. That's why we don't. I love that. Favorite vacation or getaway spot?
I loved going to Thailand and Vietnam with my husband. We did that right before the pandemic, like at the like brink of the pandemic. And I love Phuket. That's in Thailand. And we stayed in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. I mean, that part of the world is breathtaking. The food is freaking phenomenal. Like endless food orgasms every single yes.
Say less. You don't like once you just said it was beautiful. I was like, okay, I'm going anyway. I was like, I've always wanted to go to Thailand, so it's on my bucket list. So thank you for that. But once you added the food, then I'm there.
Food, honey.
She's like, I would just go and live there just for the food.
Yes.
I love it. Do you prefer sweet snacks or savory snacks?
Savory.
Okay, nice. Harry Potter or Star Wars?
Harry Potter.
That was right. You're like, without a doubt, Harry Potter. Digital books or physical books?
Digital. I ain't got time to physically.
With that whole library behind you. Mm-hmm.
This is just for show. This is just for looks.
She's like, that's from med school. Like,
medical school just totally like it's done. It has sufficiently like tortured me to. I do not want to open a physical book if I don't have to. So.
That's what nursing school has done and continues to do to me. So don't feel bad. If you could go back in time, where would you go and whom would you see?
Ooh, child.
Took her out with that one.
Back. Who would I see? I mean, honestly, if I go back in time, I probably just would go back to college because I loved those younger years. That would be fine for me. I just, relive and especially going back knowing that, oh man, this adulting stuff don't stop.
Yeah.
So live it up. I would live it up harder because the adulting just keeps coming. So that's what I would
do. It does.
Yes.
I love that. I love that answer. You don't have to go way back. You can just go back a few years. I like that.
Yes.
So what are your love languages? So I guess in what way can people show you love?
Words of affirmation or whatever, words. And yeah, that's my biggest love language is just words, caring words, affirming words, encouraging words.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, the best part of being a grown-up.
Ugh.
She's like, ooh, is there a best part? I mean, I always joke, I say money. I'm like, well, we have money now.
Traveling, I guess.
Okay.
Traveling is better when you're a grown-up, bar none. That's it.
I love it. Yeah. We asked that question this season because it's so hard to think of something good, right? Because we all complain about how much we hate adulting, but I'm forcing you to find something. Look, we all gotta grow up, right? We don't have a choice. Like if it were our choice, we would not be grown up. So
And sex is better as a grown up. Sex is way better when you're grown and safe and you
yes, ma'am.
and you're comfortable in your own skin. Ooh, yes, 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 yes.
That was like my default
Proceed.
answer. I was like, it's got to be the sex, right? It
Yeah,
has to be
yeah, I don't know
better.
how I even thought about that trumps the traveling. The sex is
That's the best part. That's the best part of being grown.
good and grown. Yes.
I love it. Okay, Cicely, was there anything you want to wrap up with for this episode?
No, I think you are so awesome. And I'm so excited about all the amazing things that you're doing. And your patients are so lucky to have you. And I'm just really glad that you're doing what you're doing and that you saw the opportunity to do it and you saw that it could be possible and you made it happen because you're paving the way for other people to do the same. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for this podcast. You guys are going deep here and really delivering like quality substance in these airwaves. So keep doing it. Kudos to you. And thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Fenwa Milhouse, everyone. I am so glad that we got to share this space in this conversation. I hope it uplifts other people who are looking for similar places and spaces. I am so glad this is a safe space. I am so proud of the fact that we've built this platform to be a safe place for people of color specifically. So I'm glad that you get to add a little chapter to that. Dr. Milhouse, thank you so much. All right. And we want to thank everyone for listening to the More Than Graphics podcast. We invite you to subscribe and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Connect and chat with us across Facebook or Twitter, especially on how our episodes in this virtual safe space is helping you navigate, empower, or encourage you. And be sure to check out our website at mtgthepodcast.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive bonus episode content such as More Than Graphics on Clubhouse, which is every Tuesday night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, everyone.
Hi, guys.